All right, so let's go ahead and get started. There are a few things that I'm focused on today. One is prompt engineering. Second of all is just overall architecture. And then third is deep research. So trying to dive into some of the tools besides just the artificial intelligence large language models. Um, One of the things that I will share with you, and I will send this as a follow-up link, there is a gentleman that I follow. His name is Nate B. Jones. And he's been talking a lot about what AI's capabilities are. One of the metrics that they have been looking at is how long can an artificial intelligence, how long can it focus on a task and get a certain set of information or tasks complete. So it started out at 5 minutes and then it extended out to half an hour. The latter part of the last few months of 2025, it was somewhere in the neighborhood of a few hours. There have been some experiments that have been going on with the big technology partners where it is, they ran an experiment and it ran without input for 2 weeks. So the horizon, like if you have a well-defined set of tasks and structure, then what it will do is it will run for a really long amount of time. So it obviously there's an iterative cycle with that. This is obviously with software development, but the horizon of tasks and the complexity of tasks and the sophistication of tasks just keeps getting longer and longer. Now, one of the interesting things about that particular example was basically what they did is they had a team of agents and they had 16 agents. Many of them had different roles. So they had somebody who was like a project manager and a solution architect, and a senior developer and a junior developer and a QA person and a DevOps role. So all these roles were working together in order to develop a particular application. Now, for the exceptionally nerdy people, what they actually built was a C compiler in Rust. So this is something that is not, it's not a simple thing to try to develop. But I just want you to get a sense that the sophistication of what is going on keeps getting better and better. Now, you can imagine, let's say I've got a software project or another project. And what I want to do is I basically want to create a team of roles that can assist my people on the project. That's definitely within the realm of possibility right now. So one of the things that I mentioned last week was the amount of money that is being invested in artificial intelligence literally dwarfs not only anything in recent history, but possibly more investment than any other technological initiative ever. The reason that they're investing is because of the potential. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to get under that potential to really help you to be more effective in your roles and responsibilities. So with that, any other questions before we get started? Okay. All right. New hierarchy of AI competence. So what AI has traditionally been used for, and I'm going to be trying to be a little more precise here. There's the flavor of AI large language models. That's really what we're talking about. So with these large language models, what really really caused artificial intelligence to take off was the chat interface. And so it used to be I ask a question and then I get a response back. I prompt better, I get better responses back. The paradigm is now changing to imagine that you're a manager and you want stuff to get done. So it's much more about defining the tasks. Imagine, let's say you've got somebody junior that you're working with, giving them the definition of the tasks so that they can complete something. They know how to verify whether it's complete or not. They present the results back to you. You can provide some feedback, and then they'll go take another iteration of it. So that is much more the direction that things are going, from just an engineer to then architecting the context to now being an agent where you're the manager. And so that's one of the things that you should notice with artificial intelligence. Whereas before you were worried about the actual getting of stuff done, now what it's doing is it's shifting into how good of a manager are you of artificial intelligence, and do you know the pieces of information that need to be provided in order for the task to be done. So I was talking with someone earlier today who's looking for a job. She said the number one question that is being asked in all her interviews is, what's your experience with AI and what are your capabilities with artificial intelligence? So it really is starting to pervade into the workplace. And that is the expectation that executives, CEOs, CTOs, business managers, what they are expecting is that everybody that comes into the organization has to have artificial intelligence skills and capabilities. That's part of the reason why I initiated this series. Okay. So we've got a couple of different examples here. You've got what is called in-context learning, where you're trying to provide context to the large language model. And what I'll do is I'm going to move over here, and I'm going to give you some examples of this. One of the things that I want you, like, here's my challenge for each and every one of you. And I know this probably sounds ridiculous, and I know this probably sounds like it's exaggerated. I would strongly, strongly suggest you be spending at least an hour a day trying to figure out what you can do with large language models. It's far beyond like an academic understanding. The only way that you're going to learn this is if you have hands on keyboard. So my challenge for you for the next week, spend at least an hour a day trying to figure out how large language models and artificial intelligence can help you do your work. Yeah, Lance.
Are you sharing your screen? Because I'm not seeing it.
I've been talking this whole time thinking that you were seeing exactly what I was doing.
And maybe I'm not, but maybe it's just me. But I'm just seeing colored blocks all over the screen.
There we go. How's that?
Now we're seeing stuff.
There we go.
There we go.
The nice thing is that the recording actually has the PowerPoint presentation. So if you want to go back and see what you weren't seeing.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So an hour a day. So this so I'm a big fan of Gemini. I use it a lot in my own analytical work. If you look at the things on the left-hand side, you'll probably be surprised at the variety of things that I'm using artificial intelligence for. So let's go back to the idea of prompts. So there's a couple of different things that I would suggest you incorporate into your prompts. And there's a couple of different ways that you'll do it. I'll show you without any special tools or capabilities. Like, these are some things that you may want to consider. So just to kind of orient you and give you the lay of the land here. So over here on the left-hand side are my prompts and my prompt history. Within the Gemini ecosystem, you have what are called gems, which basically have a custom set of instructions if you wanted to focus on a particular domain or have a particular specialty. I can create a new chat. I can search my chats, and then I can also go down and click on any one of my historical chats, and I can pick up where I left off. So this is very similar to what you'll see in Copilot, in ChatGPT, in Claude, in Perplexity. This is basically like an organizational pane to help you to keep track of the things that you've the chats that you've done, and also any customizations you've done as well. Now this obviously is the chat window. And I'm going to, again, just give you some examples of this. So what a lot of people do is they just type in, what color is the sky? Okay. And this is an example that I used the other day. Short answer is blue, and then it gives me some different options. Gemini, as you can see here, actually gives me a little bit more of a technical visualization of the reason why it is blue. But artificial intelligence and large language models aren't just a glorified search capability. If you want to do search, then I would probably just go to Google and use the AI mode there in order to get the overview. So if I say, what color is the sky? And go do a search, and what you'll see up here is Google is obviously starting to embed these AI overviews, and you see how quickly that came up. This is happening like really, really fast, and they're optimizing for speed on this. So if you just need to do a search, my suggestion is don't use a Gemini, a ChatGPT for that. Just go in and do your Google search. Now, let's say, for example, I want something that is a little more in depth. So let's say I live in Utah and I want an overview of the HOA laws in the state. Okay, obviously a little more complicated than the sky is blue. So Eric, you raise your hand.
More of a comment than a question. I know when I first started doing the LLMs, I was not starting new conversations, and I did not, even realize the value of that. But so I wanted to call out in case anyone else is not aware of that. The nice part is you can keep them under topics. That way you can go back to them 3 weeks later, particularly if you're doing some research on something. That way it picks up exactly where you left off. So it's better to segregate and, like what you just did, start a new topic search instead of just continuing to use the same one for everything.
Yeah, excellent point. Because basically what it does is it takes a lot of that history and it basically uses that as context for your chat. So if you're on a single chat thread and you're bouncing all around, you're probably going to get some pretty mixed results. So if you have a new topic, a new intent, suggestion is to be able to create a new chat. And thanks for bringing that up, Eric. So this one is a little bit more sophisticated. So I live in Utah and I want an overview of the HOA laws in the state. Now, a couple of things that you'll notice here, and I mentioned this last week, we talked about parametric knowledge. So parametric knowledge is basically knowledge that is embedded within the large language model. It's highly susceptible to hallucinations. Because all it does is it looks at that training, as I mentioned before. What large language models are basically next text prediction machines. And so when you're just predicting what is the probability that this word will come next, then you may or may not get something right. Now, one of the things that you'll see here is that this is not just using the parametric knowledge. What it's also using is it's also using search results and information to be able to pull that in. So each one of these links that you see here is a link to a website that references, that was a reference for the information. So you can see here that link here for steadily.com. When I hover over that, it talks about this reference is specifically about governing condo complexes. When I highlight this, you can see that the entire description is highlighted. So I just wanted you to notice this, that you're starting to see large language models not just focus on that parametric knowledge, but also to be able to use search results, and where appropriate, they actually merge in the parametric information with information from search as well. ChatGPT uses Bing, Gemini obviously uses Google. So this is a pretty broad question. I live in Utah. I want an overview of HOA laws. It gives me a pretty good outline of the information. It's not too complicated. But now what we'll do is that we'll actually even get a little bit more detailed. And so the example that I'm going to use, so I'm going to start creating a little bit more structure to this. And one of the tools that you can use what is called Markdown, which if you've seen documents with lots of asterisks and hashtags in them, that typically is like a Markdown format, and it's a way of organizing information. You can also get really sophisticated and use JSON or XML file formats. But for today, I'm just going to show you, for example, what a Markdown format might look like. So one of the things that will help you to get better results is is my role. Okay, so my role. So let's say my role. I am a real estate realtor in the state of Utah. Need to, okay, so what that does is that sets the context of who you are. And then the next thing that you want to do is say your role. So what I want to do is I want to define what the large language model's role is. So I can say you are a 20, 30-year expert in real estate law in the state of Utah with deep experience in the statutory regulations about the laws in the state. Okay, so this is really helpful because you're basically saying what your role is, what their role is, and you'll notice I did a couple of things here. I actually told it that you're a 30-year expert in real estate law. Part of the reason that I do that is it helps to kind of help gauge and define how sophisticated the response is going to be. So then what I can do is I can give it context. So I'm going to ask it to do something, but sometimes context is really helpful. Now, there's a couple of different ways that I can use it. What I can do is I can just type that in, or what I can do, let's say there's a file, maybe I have a question about a file, I can upload that file and I can say, use the attached file for context about the conversation. It is a contract that I am evaluating. Yeah, Eric.
Out of curiosity, I know you're doing this in Gemini. Is it the same? Do you do this the same in Copilot, ChatGPT, all of the same? It's the hash and all of that. Okay, cool. I did not know this.
They're very good at parsing that. So yeah, absolutely. Anything that follows like the Markdown file structure will help it to be will help it to understand the sections of the prompt. And it actually is faster, it's more token efficient, and usually gives you a better response.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if I had a file, I could go ahead and do that. Now, one other thing that I also have is I've got some voice to text software, so sometimes I'll use that. So let me just turn that on real quick. I have a contract I am looking at with a client. They are having some water issues with their property, and they're trying to figure out what they need to disclose to the buyer, period. It's a very common issue in the area, and they just need to know what level of specificity to include in their disclosures. Okay. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a task. So what I would, I want you to look at the contract and evaluate what the risks and recommendations are for the client disclosure for water issues. Okay. And then one of the other things I can do is I can also give it examples. So what I can do is I can say, here's an example attached as an example of a water disclosure that isn't too revealing and has been determined to be within the law. So one of the things I can do is I can actually give it examples, or what I can what I can also say is guard rails, or you can even say constraints. Do not put me or the client in a position of being out of compliance with the law. Okay. So these are just some examples. So what I can do is I can tell the tone, give me a professional response, level, knowledge level, respond to me like I'm a fifth grader. Okay. And then another thing I can do is I can say, ask me any questions to make sure you are clear on the request before responding. Okay. Lance.
Yeah, so these prompts you're giving it, these portions of the prompts, is that building that persona that if you save this as a gem, or do you just leave this as a chat, and so it remembers all of those? Can you then ask it to echo those back to you so you can see them, so you can modify them later, that type of thing?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I have some suggestions. I have some suggestions a little bit later on what you can do. For right now, I'm just focused on this. But that's a great point about being able to create a gem, being able to create a custom GPT, and memorializing that. Like if you are a real estate agent and you regularly have these types of questions, then typically what you want to do is you want to create a set of instructions for answering those types of things. So absolutely, you're spot on about that. Okay. Now, the other thing that you'll also notice is fast thinking in Pro. So most large language models have at least two different levels, one for quick answers, and then the other, which is a little bit more thoughtful. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Just for the sake of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just enter it and do the fast one. So it asks me some questions. Hear you loud and clear, dealing with water issues in Utah as an expert. So I had you mentioned an attached contract. Could you please share the specific text or upload the document? So it's actually holding me accountable for what I said. So water story, what is the water doing? Fix. Once you provide those details, I'll break down exactly what they should say. So they say safe, legal, and out of court. I don't have the documents right now, so just give me a general overview of how this situation is usually best handled. So one of the things that I have found is including that ask me to ask the large language model to ask you questions is really helpful. Because what it does is that there are some things that are really ambiguous, there are some things that are incredibly precise. And so if it has some ambiguity or it thinks that there are things that might be relevant, then it will ask you those questions so that you can figure some of those things out. So 5th grade version, which is kind of interesting. So it gave me, not too much detail, but this is like the key thing. When in doubt, out with it. So basically just tell the truth if you don't think that you're sure about that. So this is the 5th grade version. Now what I'm going to do is say, this is great information. Now give me the senior lawyer perspective on this issue. So again, I'm changing the intellectual level of the response. So senior level legal analysis. So it talks about legal standard and even references a particular case. The thing that I will say is just be careful anytime that there is a legal case that is mentioned, unless there is a specific link to that case that you can verify for yourself. This is where people get in trouble with large language models because these large language models can definitely hallucinate. And there have been some legal analysts that have gotten into trouble because they have referenced legal cases that just don't exist. So you always, even though these are very good at figuring these things out and doing research, you always want to verify, especially where you're the person that is responsible for the output. You absolutely need to verify everything that you send out, everything that you respond to using AI. So you see this level of detail, it mentions a specific case, or it mentions a specific particular rule. So much more detailed in how it is responding there. So, but you can see just simply by changing the knowledge level or the role, you get a very different response. Yeah, Peter.
Oh yeah. So when they give you the legal reference in this case, can we also ask it to provide a link to it, or we should not take that as, because when it's hallucinate and it can give us to something else that's not really true, right?
Yep. Case mentioned. So one of the great things, obviously, about these tools is you can just ask it for additional information. So it actually does give you a particular case number, and you can look that up. So what it also did was it gave me links to Digital Commons Law.byu, Hepworth Legal, that is a local local law firm. So, and then the other thing that you can also do, you'll see where I'm asking for specific references. At least in Google, what it will do is it will actually give you that link directly out to this. So this one, Dorianne Mitchell versus Christensen, it says plaintiff purchased a home in Sandy. I'd probably drill into that. That's probably the case. But with a little bit of extra effort, you can go in and you can verify this information yourself. But when in doubt, I mean, that's a great point, Peter. Ask the question it'll probably give you the details, but absolutely don't assume that what it's given to you is 100% correct. Okay, so has this been helpful? Like, what have you kind of thought about or realized as you're putting together your prompts going forward?
Yeah, I think the tag prompt is very helpful. I did not know about that at all. Um, a question about that is, uh, does the tag prompt, like the hashtag,
Mhm.
does it work across different chat, or this one is particular to Gemini?
No, it's for any large language model. I mean, basically, what you're doing is you're kind of emulating a Markdown file format. So, I mean, you can get more sophisticated with it, but all these language models are very good at decoding structured text.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions before we continue?
Yeah, I have a question about, so obviously when I'm at work and I'm using the work provided tools, where I'm not so concerned about the tokens that are being utilized in my query, but is there any way for me to understand what the impact of this is on my monthly or weekly, whatever the limit is of tokens for whatever level I'm at?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good question, Lance. What I would say, um, well, there's a couple of answers I would give to that. One, for the most part, unless you're using the really heavy models, for the most part, you probably won't run into token limitations. Where you tend to run into limitations is with the coding assistants, especially as I mentioned at the beginning, where you can have a team of coders. I was listening to an interview earlier this week where they think that somebody that is a heavy duty user of artificial intelligence could easily blow through 1 billion tokens a year. Easily. So you can imagine from if the company is paying for it, like how much you could rack up in costs there. So most of the coding tools do have the ability to actually monitor the utilization. So if I come over here, let me see if I can pull this up real quick. So if I come here, I take a look at my settings. So this is Claude Code. I can go ahead and I can take a look at my usage, and I can see current session, weekly limits, extra utilization, how much that I've spent. So usually those tools are very good at providing you transparency, because that's where you're really going to churn through tokens, especially if you're using like agents. So I've even included in my scripts, like after, and again, this is within code, make sure after each prompt you tell me how many tokens that used. And many of them, if you're doing token-based utilization, they'll actually give you real-time a summary of the tokens that are being used. So there are lots of tools that are available to be able to help you to monitor that, but it's something that you're going to need to look for. It's not going to be handed to you. They're just more than happy to take your money and not necessarily give you transparency into that. And that's your question?
It did.
Okay.
Well, a follow-up question, and maybe it's something I might just ask. Maybe I'll just ask the agent.
Right.
Is how are they? Is it what I type in that's counted as the token, or is it when it responds is counted as the token, or both?
Both. Yeah. So what you'll see if I come up here and I say, what is the price per million tokens for Chat GPT? 5.2 thinking. So you see this will come out pretty quick. So for 5.2 thinking, it's priced at $1.75 per million input tokens and $14 per million output tokens. 400,000 context window. So one of the things that you will see is every single one of these models, the older it gets and the less thinking it does, the cheaper it gets. So you can see here, the cost here is $175 per million. For Pro, which is a higher tier model, is 21 per input tokens, and it's $168 per million output tokens. So these can be radically different. So let's actually say for Gemini, let's say 2.5 Flash. So you see the pricing here is very, very different. So with Gemini, you're between 10 cents and 30 cents per million input tokens and between 40 and $2.50 per million output tokens. So this is part of the reason why I have used Gemini historically, is because literally it's an order of magnitude cheaper than ChatGPT, which definitely charges a premium for those. But it definitely is something to be aware of while you're doing this work. But again, if you're just prompting a large language model, it's usually not a big deal. And I could go on about token utilization all day long.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that I had mentioned, or that Lance had helped to bring up, is this idea of gems, or in ChatGPT, it's custom GPTs. Okay, just wanted to make sure that I was working. So what you'll see here is I went and clicked on a new gem. So let's say real estate analyst. You are a, let's see, real estate, cannot type today, list that assists in identifying best practices when selling a. So, and then the other thing that I can do is I can give it a set of instructions here. So be knowledgeable about Utah state law, know best practices, identify how to improve my reputation. And then the other thing that I can also do is I can add documents as well. So real estate analyst, basically going to help me in selling homes. I wanted to be knowledgeable about the law, know about the best practices, and also be mindful of my reputation. Now, one of the things that you'll usually see here is whatever you put in here, oftentimes what you can use is AI to rewrite your instructions. So I'm going to give that a shot. Now, I have not had great luck with this in Gemini. ChatGPT tends to do a better job, but you can see it basically took my 4 sentences and definitely blew that out into several different categories, including like the tone. So that's very helpful. If I wanted to add knowledge documents, things that I've written so that it picks up my style and my tone, then I can do that, and then I can go ahead and save that information, and I can start a chat that has been customized for me. And then the nice thing is like, let's say I want to upload a contract, or let's say I want to do deep research, or let's say I want to create some images. Then I've got the ability to do that. So this is a really nice way, like if you're in a particular role, let's say you're a teacher or you're a consultant or you're a security analyst, coming up with a custom GPT that has all these instructions, rules, guidelines can be very, very helpful. Now, the one thing that I will also note here, let's see, actually, I don't know. In ChatGPT, there's actually a limit here. But that being said, there's a lot of information that you can include here. Whatever, and also whatever is in the instructions, you can also add to your knowledge base as well. So you can get very specific about, like, what are your revenue goals? What particular markets do you specialize? What type of real estate do you focus on? Do you focus on residential? Do you focus on commercial? Do you focus on office buildings? Do you want to make $300,000 a year in commissions? Commission rate is typically 3%. Whatever you want to put in there that is relevant guidance can be super, super helpful here. So every time you chat, it's going to take all that context and it's going to give you an answer, but it's also going to give you an answer, say, within the context of what your particular revenue goals are for the year. And you can even tell it, like, from a personality perspective, I'm really good at this. I'm really good at talking one-on-one with people. I'm not so great at networking events. I have a really good eye for, marketing and social media content. I'm not so great at traditional media purchases and things like that. I haven't had a lot of success with that. All that can go within the instructions. And whatever you don't include in the instructions, I would also suggest you add that to your knowledge as well. The knowledge is somewhat limited. Usually it's like somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 10 documents. So just be cognizant that's not infinite. But this is like a super valuable tool that's available to you. Now, I've focused on real estate analyst. One of the things that I will show you is macros. So, I mean, this is like, my wife actually came up with this idea, and my mom is trying to eat healthier. She's a little bit older. And so, Brenda knows my mom. And so what we did is we put in what the macro targets were, and then basically she just puts in the information that of what she ate, and it will make reasonable assumptions. The more detail you give it, the better off it will be. But one of the things that I really like here is, would you like me to suggest high protein breakfast for tomorrow that could help hit that 75 gram goal earlier in the day? So it's not just tracking to whatever your goals are, but it is also making recommendations on how to achieve those goals. So this is a great example of how you can build a custom GPT or a gem to help you, excuse me, to help you solve very specific problems and to track things. The other thing you can also do is you can upload a file, so basically a picture of what you ate, and it will do a good job of decomposing that. I've taken a picture of a salad, and it said, can you give me, can you identify all the ingredients in the salad and give me an approximate macros for them? It does an amazing job at decomposing what is in that image and then breaking down at a very realistic and granular level of what's in that salad. Like, you don't have to go ingredient by ingredient. You don't have to, look it up. It's like, oh, well, this is this brand of peanut butter and this is this brand of beef jerky. Like, you can take a picture, or you can just tell it. Or like I showed before, you can just talk to it and tell it, whatever information, so that you're not having to type stuff in. Super helpful for being on the go, whether you're using ChatGPT or whether you're using Gemini. So these are just some other ideas of how you can excuse me, how you can further give it instructions so that it gives you a better output. So I'm just going to pause here for a second. What questions do you have, or what is kind of coming up as ways that you could better prompt in order to get better outputs through your use of large language models?
Yeah, for me is I think I'm still learning how to prompt um, ChatGPT or Gemini. Um, I try to talk to it just like normal, human talk to human,
Mm-hmm.
and it gave me information what I asked for, but a lot of time that I still have to follow up and ask a question. What about this? What about that? And then it keep going back to me and say, "Oh, that's a good idea." But it doesn't give me right out of the batch. I have to have a lot of follow-up questions in
Yeah.
order for it to give me what I want.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it give me the information, and then I said, this doesn't look right. And it come back and say, good catch. I said, I don't want to be a good catch, because if I don't double check that information and I take it as what you gave me and it's wrong. Um, so those are the one that I try to learn how to give it better prompt so it can give me the correct information rather than I have to um, double check with it every time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that might be helpful here, so I've done that a lot of times too, where I've given it a prompt and it's like, oh, that's pretty good, or maybe that's not quite right, or what about this? This is something that I do quite regularly at the end of a long prompt string, where I say, what prompt should I have given you to get the outcome of the senior legal analyst? So let's say you went through 24 prompts to get exactly what you were hoping for. What could you have done right at the beginning to get to that point? And it's very good at making some suggestions of, if you would have done this, if you would have done this, this would have been a better prompt. So
Hmm.
this is one of the things that I think is really important to think about while you're using um, large language models, is once you've given it the context, learn from it, harvest the information that you um, have gained through that thread. So, and just for example here, it says to get that senior legal expert perspective. So this would be a prompt. These were some requirements. And then it explains to you like why this prompt worked. So something to think about. And what you'll see there, persona, context, task, requirements. So that same type of example structure that I showed you before, it's actually helping you to see that these are, when you organize your prompt in a way according to these categories, it's going to give you a better outcome.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. And each of the bold text there, I can use them like the hashtag that you used earlier, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So, any other comments or observations before we switch over to Notebook Helen?
The one thing I would bring up is, and I've just used this week, and it was a game changer. It gave me back the answers I wanted. It gave me a list of values that I needed, and I said, take those values and put them in bullets, and then put it in a table. And it did that. And I said, okay, that table's a bit too long for the way I want to put it in my presentation. So I said, shorten all those bullets. And I did that. So then at the end of the day, I ended up with short bullets in a table, exactly ready for copy and paste. And then I said, create a Word doc of this, and it exported the Word doc. And then I just copied and pasted. And then I could obviously edit from there. So again, there's additional steps to get it out, and to get it out in the format that I wanted was great.
Yeah, absolutely. Great example, Lance. Appreciate you sharing. Okay, so we've focused largely on large language models. The one thing, I know that we are over time. If you have to jump to another obligation, I understand. But for those that want to stay on just a little bit longer, there are a couple of other things that I wanted to share with you as well. One was about deep research, and then the other was about Notebook LM. So I'll just go over those if you need to drop. Thanks for joining and enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next week. Okay, so the deep research capabilities. So you may or may not be familiar with this. So deep research is, and this is available pretty much in every large language model user interface. So what you'll see here is like here, deep research, almost the same thing. Gemini doesn't give you the option to toggle on web search or not. It just automatically embeds that in. So you'll see that this deep research capability is very similar to what you'll see over here on the Gemini side. There is a different model that it uses. So if you toggle that deep research on and off, it will probably prompt you to start a new chat, which it did here. So what do you want to research? So I'm just going to pause here, and I want somebody to just give me a topic of something that they're interested in researching. It could be a car, it could be a musician, it could be a technical concept, it could be a philosophical topic, just anything. And the reason I want you to come up with it is because, one, I've already given you some of my examples, but I want to really make this tactical and try and resolve something that you are trying to solve right now.
If no one else has one, I'll just say home security systems and cameras.
This is for 2026. How big is your home?
2,800 square feet.
What are your key concerns?
Cost per month. Initial cost. Ease of use. Customer support. How about that?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to use the fast
security. Security. Like I found that Google Nest is sharing out to a Hive, and I don't want that. So it's something. It's like privacy. There you go.
Okay. So I just wrote that down. Usually I would format this a little better. I am choosing the fast option. So I just kind of, that was just a dump of the things that I was interested in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that search. Now, raise your hand or react with a raised hand if you've ever done deep research before. Have you done this on any platform? Okay, so Lance, you've done it. Peter, Jill, Brenda? Nope. Okay. This to me is one of the most valuable things. This came out. I remember I was in a conference room the month it came out. So this was about a year ago. And this is what you will see is it basically acts as an agent, and you can choose to show the thinking or not. But this is like super helpful to see how the large language model is thinking about it. So I'm initiating a comprehensive investigation. I'm prioritizing data sovereignty and support. Next steps for local and financial analysis. And then it gives you all the references that it's looking at. And so it will go through step by step and tell you what it's thinking, where it's referencing, what the next steps are. Like in this one, cost and subscription realities, data sovereignty and privacy. And this will run anywhere from 5 minutes to, I've seen the longer ones run 30 minutes. So this isn't, you're going to enter something in and it's going to pop something out. It's going to go through and it's going to do a fairly comprehensive process of doing the investigation. And then one of the things, so it looks like this one's actually going to be done fairly quickly. You look for key things like I'm moving into the final phase of my research. And then usually what you'll see is I've completed the synthesis, I've resolved ambiguity. Now, it knew that I was in Farmington, and so probably what I should have included was that this is in whatever the locality is that's appropriate. But this is a very, very helpful tool in researching anything that is important to you. As a teacher, like I can only imagine this would be absolutely invaluable. If you're a consultant, absolutely invaluable. If you want to understand more about a domain, this is a really time-efficient way of capturing and synthesizing the information in a way that makes sense and is well organized. One of the things that I've realized, so you take a look at these. So as of right now, they've probably researched over 200 websites. A lot of these are not well organized. They're not well written. And I find that with the organization and the structure that these outcomes have, or that these deep research agents have, can be super helpful in helping you to build a mental framework about this. Now, I'm going to pause here for a minute, and I'm going to come back to it, and I'll show you why I'm going to come back to it. So deep research, super helpful. Try that out. This could be one of the things that you spend your hour a day working on. All right. So I am over at something called Notebook LM. Will you just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Thumbs up if you've heard of it or used it. Thumbs down if you have not. So Brenda, yes. Peter, no. Lance, yes. And real quick before I get into it, like Brenda, Lance, how have you used Notebook LM?
I have used it just briefly. I've barely scratched the surface. Kind of a project to organize different resources of something that I'm looking into.
Okay.
I have a former colleague his name is Jason, that told me about it, and I never got a chance to actually dabble in it, and I tried to call it up today at work because my customer's using it and we're using it for something, and I just started the project today, so but I can't reach it from my work machine because they blocked that URL, so I'm going to have to figure out exceptions to get to actually use it.
Yeah, great. So I'm going to show you some content from from a couple of things that I've already done. So what you'll see here, like I have probably 200 of these books that I've built out. So this was for a permitting request for proposal that we had put together. So what you'll see over here on the left-hand side is something in the neighborhood of like 20 documents. So I just uploaded all the documents, and then basically what that does is that turns it into a chat bot. So I can ask questions about it. And then up here over on the right hand side, like this is one of the things that I absolutely love are some of these canned capabilities that are included. So if you want an audio overview of it, do you want a deep dive? Do you want a brief? Do you want a critique? Do you want a debate? How long do you want it to be? And then you can give it some guidance on what you wanted to focus on during that episode. So there was a technical topic that I was not very familiar with. And I did some research, put that research within Notebook LM, and asked it to convert it into a long form audio, basically a podcast style about that particular topic. It came back with 45-minute podcast. I listened to it while I was out walking with the dogs. So one of the things that I found, like for example, I'm a very visual learner, I'm a very audio learner, I'm an oral learner, and I don't really do well with reading, long documents. And so this allows it to be synthesized and organized in a way that makes sense to my brain and how I think. So you can generate video explainers, which is a combination of, it's like a PowerPoint presentation with video. It's all kind of consolidated together so you don't get editability of it. But if you want kind of a nice multi-modal video overview, you've got the audio, you've got the visual, and then you've also got the video component to it as well. Mind maps, if you're familiar with those, does a great job of organizing information into a data structure that's navigable. I can create reports. From a teacher perspective, this is one of the things that my daughter uses all the time. She was initially a little resistant to it, but if she has content, a video, a PDF, and she wants to quiz herself on it, she can create a quiz. So more or fewer questions, how difficult you want them to be, and then things to try out. And then also like flashcards, like what are the key concepts? And it will create a flashcard deck on the topic, like super cool stuff. Infographics. Now, I've actually generated an infographic about this. So this is conservation regulator permission systems architecture. So it gives me like these are the key concepts and how they relate to the permission system. So it's getting better and better at doing that. Usually what you would do is you would zoom in and you would see that there are just misspellings all over the place, but that issue has largely been resolved. The mind map, for those of you that may be familiar with it, so permission system, context and objectives, permissions categories, functional requirements, technical and compliance. Now I can drill down to the details of any one of these, or I can blow out the entire map as well. Now, when I click on one particular component of this, so online portal submissions, what it does is it actually drills down, basically uses that as a filter criteria, and then gives me a summary of the information from those resources about that particular topic about online portal submission. So it does take some time. It's not instantaneous because it's actually searching through your information. And then it gives me, basically identifies, hey, here's the workflow process. And here's one of the cool things that I've also done. So take the workflow process and output to a mermaid chart code in a workflow format. Don't use parentheses. So now what it's doing, so I identified, so it created a summary of what the data flow was. It actually gave me some of the details on this. So what I told it to do was to output that to a mermaid chart format. So mermaid, log in, and it will take just a second for this to render on this side. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up. So this has a code editor to it. So I'm going to remove that. And then what I'll do is I will just copy this. And basically what it is it's just code. And then I'll come over here, paste it. Let's see if it will. Oh, it ran into an error. Let's see if you can figure it out. Oh, that's why. Let's see. So anyway, what this will do, and I did not try this out ahead of time. But what you can do is you can create charts, you can create data diagrams. You can really, anything that's like, oh, and it worked this time. So you can see what it did is it took all that documentation and gave me a process flow. What the decision trees are, what were the yes and no, I can put that into swim lanes. So usually as an analyst, it would take me a while to kind of pour through those documents, figure out what the dependencies are, and it basically figures out what all that logic is and can easily visualize that. I'm not a fan of the layout on this, so I can tell it to be adaptive, so it's a little bit more organized, and it will automatically reorganize the information in a way that makes sense. So I'm going to come back here to Notebook LM, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this document that it just I'm going to take this document that it just generated for me. And actually what I'll do is I'll just copy the contents. I'll take it over to Notebook LM. I'm going to take all that content. And I recognize that it still had the old stuff. Let's see. Copy contents. It may just take a second. Copy to clipboard. There we go. Put all that content in there. And then this is one of my favorite things. What I'm going to do is create a comparative table between the different providers, output as a table, provider in column 1, a description in column 2, pricing in column 3, rows in column 4, cons in column 5, recommendation level in stars in column 6. So I basically said, so this is a data table definition. So it automatically knows I've got to put this out in a table format. So I took all that research about the residential security, and you can see the size of the document that it came out with. Whole bunch of references. And then what I did is I just took that and put that into Notebook LM, and it gave me, here, I'll zoom that out. So it gave me the different providers, Ring, Vivint, SimpliSafe, Ubiquity, ADT. and then gave me a description, what the pricing is, pros, cons, recommendation, and then also links to the source as well. So it thinks that Ring is probably the top. I didn't tell it to sort it in descending order, but that's what it did. And so this gives me a very nice, succinct way of comparing this information in a single table. So you can see I went from idea, brief description, it blew out the description, did the research. I can take it over to Notebook LM, and then it will give me a comparative output in the format that I chose. So
that is good and scary good.
it's scary good.
Yes.
Yeah. And and the thing that you'll notice is the time to do these things, to go from concept, like I was giving you an outline of lots of other things, but the actual effort to do the research and get it displayed correctly, what was that, 90 seconds, 2 minutes? Like this is not a lot of effort to put this together. And like,
Wow.
and this is the level of speed and sophistication that is going to be expected in the coming years. So I'm part of what I wanted to do is to help you to understand these are some of the tools that you can use in order to do whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to be a better coach, if you want to be a better technical architect, if you want to be a better security analyst, the tools are in your bailiwick in order to figure out how to get the answers to the questions that you're looking for. And there really is almost no question that cannot be answered if it has to do with knowledge work. So again, like one of the things I mentioned right up front was an hour a day. In order to get really familiar with these tools, I would suggest a minimum of 10% of your time, of your work time, should be spent using large language models, figuring out how they can help you to be more effective in your personal responsibilities. So with that, I will just pause for a second. What we've got, it's 4:24. So I've got about 5 more minutes, but just wanted to open it up. What questions do you have?
I don't think I have any questions. I'm just taking it all in and I'm going to play with what you taught me.
Excellent. Thank you, Brenda. Lance, Jill, Peter, Eric.
Yeah, the same here. Just like Brenda said, I'm just taking it in, and I think I learned several tips and tricks today that I'm going to try to apply in my conversation with the LRM here.
Yeah, excellent. Any other questions?
Thought it was very interesting. It was great. I enjoyed it. I don't have any questions yet, though.
Yeah, Jill, from an education perspective, I just think that there are so many really interesting use cases. Like you think about how this is going to change what learning is like to be able to, if you're identifying what kind of a learner are you an audio learner? Are you a visual learner? Do you learn through quizzes? Do you learn through taking notes? Do you want a well-formatted slide deck? Do you like data organized? Like there is no reason why you cannot learn anything that you set your mind to, which is great for students, but it's even better for people that are adults that don't have guardrails on what they want to focus on and pay attention to.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Before we wrap up, I've got one final thing that I wanted to show to you. So this was done with something that was called Claude Cowork. So we do as consultants, we do a lot of requirements documents. So what I did is I kind of did a brain dump of these are things that I wanted to be in an application. So basically, it's a product requirements document. And Lance, you can kind of vouch for how much fun product requirements documents are to put together.
I cannot vouch for any fun being had.
Yeah, not fun, tedious, lots of iterations. So I
A lot of
basically
ambiguity, as you would
lots of
say.
ambiguity. So what I did was I came up with about 15 bullet points of what I wanted this application to do. Now, I had created a standards document that explained how I wanted the application to be built. Like, what were some of the foundational things? Like, I wanted it in Docker containers. I wanted to use a Postgres database, Python on the back end, React on the front end. So I'd given it some technical parameters, but it's like I could have spent easily spent an hour like thinking through things, and there probably would have been massive holes in it. So I spent approximately no more than 5 minutes putting this together. So this is a architectural design proposal. So basically, it's an executive utility system. And again, like I gave it none of this structure. And it created basically a 10-page requirements document. Now, I kind of scanned through it. I'm like, you're kind of missing this and you're missing this. Oh, I forgot about this. Make sure and add it. And it went through and it made a revision of it. So executive summary, design philosophy, high-level architecture, data flow architecture, information management engine, proactive management system, system automations, technology stack details, user experience principles, and then the deployment model, prioritize clarifying questions. So after it did all that, it's like, I've got some questions, and like just how I asked it to the language model to ask me questions, it gave me about a sheet of things that's like, this isn't clear. And then it actually gave me proposed next steps and then basically like a risk matrix. So what are the areas of uncertainty? So Lance, if you were to take a look at this just from an overall structure, formatting, if you were a consultant that had to put this together, how long do you think this would have taken you?
A couple days to read the documents, a couple days minimum to produce output. Yeah, like four or 5 days. Give it a week.
Yeah, a week. And so, obviously, this isn't the most sophisticated thing. I don't have a stakeholder that I'm trying to satisfy. But the fact that with nearly zero guidance, actually no guidance on the output, this is what it generated. Like, this is the level of productivity that is starting to be expected of people in knowledge work, regardless of where they are. So the thing that I would suggest is start harvesting. Like, if you have to produce documents, if you have to produce content, create whatever your standards are, and then start practicing this discipline of here's my ideas. I'm going to dump everything that I can. I know these are best practices. This is how I want it to look and feel. I want it to be organized. I want it to be readable. I wanted to use this particular branding scheme. And like being able to create a document structure like this has gone literally from days to minutes. So again, like this is the level of leverage. So this is the level of leverage that employers and customers are starting to expect, when it comes to knowledge work. So let's say, for example, I've got a consultant who makes $100 an hour, just for round numbers. So if they spend a week on that, probably fully loaded cost. Actually, we'll just call that 125. This something like this would be $1,000 or would be a $5,000 deliverable. That's how much it would cost. I would probably charge $10,000 for it by the time that it's done. And now that has been compressed to minutes. So is it still a $10,000 document? Maybe it's got the value of $10,000, but people know, oh, you used AI to draft that, I'll pay $1,000 for it or something like that. So if you are not generating that value at that level of leverage, and the tools are only going to get better, like just know that you're behind on what the capabilities are of artificial intelligence and helping you to be radically productive. And on that bombshell,
Thank you, Jeremy.
So just one final question. So just using this as kind of the capstone of the conversation, like what is your kind of emotional reaction to the level of effort required to put out a document like this?
Can I interrupt that? And I have a question.
Sure.
When you talked about hallucinations, like, do you read through this and make sure do you check the accuracy? Do you check the facts? Like, I don't understand. I guess I can't wrap my head around how an AI or a computer would come up with inaccurate results.
How it would come up with inaccurate results?
Yeah, or hallucinations. Where do those come from? Like,
the hallucinations.
I've never thought of that before. So now every time you do something, I'm like, is that right? Is it accurate?
Yeah. So in reading through this, I would say this is not only spot on, but it's better than I could have done by a long shot. Now, the thing that I did was I gave it a lot of information. I said, these are my standards. I gave it my intent. So this is how I want it to function. These are my design principles. This is a list of key functions I want to make sure that are incorporated. So because I gave it so much context, it's a lot harder for the language model to hallucinate if it's not relying solely on that parametric data, and it's relying a lot on the context that I am giving to it. So hallucinations tend to come when you're not being very specific in what you're asking. You're not giving it very much context. You're not asking it to do research. And that's the other thing that it did, is it went out and it did research on best practices for the thing that I was trying to build. And so I had it do the research, and then it came back and said, these are some additional features and functionality that you should probably consider that are kind of intuitively part of this particular application. So the hallucinations come from a lack of grounding, a lack of context, a lack of structure. The more you can do that, the better a document like this is going to be. So I did this for my own purposes, and I read through every word, and there were half a dozen places where it wasn't technically wrong, but it didn't quite betray what I wanted it to, and I was able to make some improvements from that. So
okay.
Anyway, is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, for me is I also when it create documents like that, and I cheat by taking that and fit into different AI and say validate this document for validity.
Yep. That's a great point, Peter, where what you can do is that you can either send the same prompt to two different large language models, or you can take the output from one and say, hey, give me a critique of this. Like, one of my favorite things is to tell it to do a red team, blue team analysis, which is a term often used in the legal world, which is basically give me the arguments for and give me the arguments against each one of these points. And I'll have it actually put that out in a table, say, here's the name, here's the feature description, what's the red team, blue team analysis, and then I'll ask it to give me a recommendation on the, how strong the architecture or the argument is. So that's another thing that you can also use artificial intelligence for, is to help you to critique the ideas. So that's a great point, Peter.
And Jason, is there any equivalent to the LM notebook, the ChatGPT side?
No, there isn't. Not on the ChatGPT side. What I will say is for Copilot, there is. So within Copilot, if you are licensed, there is a feature called Notebooks within the copilot.microsoft.com. So you can put a whole bunch of documents there. My experience is that there's a limit on the number of documents that you can upload. If I remember correctly, it's like 20. In Notebook LM, it's 300. So it's a totally different scope. And then Notebook LM is also very good at like image to text, audio to text, limited video to text type capabilities. So you can put in lots of different types of documents, and it's very good at parsing that information.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I appreciate your time. Hopefully this has been super valuable. The thing that I would ask is just share this with other people. There's no charge for this training. Just trying to get the word out about artificial intelligence and what its capabilities are. So feel free to forward the email. Anybody with a link can join. So can't wait to see you next week, where we'll continue diving deeper.